Hi, I'm Sam Lewis, and welcome to Living That Matters, where we teach you to be successful with integrity, honor, and dignity. Well, this is part 2 in a series on the laws of the universe. And in part 1, I talked about why I believe that there are laws that govern the universe, that governs what happens. And in that I discussed the basic introduction, but I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up before I get into part 2. Because if you listen to some of the teaching that's out there on the laws of the universe, the laws of attraction and different things like that, you're led to believe that if I believe something strong enough, I can get anything I want if I just believe it. Now that's almost true, and later in another part of the series I'm going to go into that in detail to talk about how that actually works. But I want to give you this concept in regards to that. You see, when you really fully come to understand how God designed the universe to work, how the laws of the universe really work, when you get an understanding, it sets you free in every area of your life. But we have a great misunderstanding about what freedom is. You see, freedom is not the right to do what I want. Freedom is the ability to do what I should. And that's what the laws of the universe teach us. And yes, I believe that in belief we can achieve a lot, and we'll talk about that later. But you see, I have a responsibility to the laws of the universe. And when I understand them, it's going to set me free to do what's right. And that's real freedom. And see, if you don't have that, we become a slave to our passions, to our desires, and we not only don't get what we want, but we end up doing a lot of damage in the universe. And so we'll talk about that later. But freedom, again, is not the right to do what I want. It's the ability to do what I should. Now let me talk about part 2, because today I want to talk about the laws of the harvest. And I said in part 1, and I believe this to be true, that the lack of understanding about the laws of the harvest is probably, I think, the greatest reason why 97% of people fail in business and fail in their attempt to do internet marketing or home-based business or things of that nature. And in fact, I think even in our personal lives, it's why most people fail, because they don't understand the laws of the harvest. So let's talk about the laws of the harvest. And there's 3 of them, 3 basic laws of the harvest. And all farmers know these laws, and they live by these laws. So let's talk about it. Law number 1 is pretty simple, and I think most of us have heard it, and that is that you're going to reap whatever you sow. Whatever it is that you sow, that's what you're going to reap. You see, you don't plant an apple seed and get bananas. You don't get oranges. You don't get tomatoes. If you plant an apple seed, you're going to get apples. Whatever it is that you sow, that's what you're going to reap. And that's true in every area of life. You see, if you sow love, you're going to get love. If you sow joy, you're going to get joy. If you sow discontent, you're going to get discontent. If you sow corruption, you're going to get corruption. Whatever it is that you sow, that's what you're going to get. And a lot of people are aware of that. You've heard that law, but there's certain aspects of it that we forget and that we don't think about, and it helps us to get discouraged. You see, what it means to plant or to sow is you're actually taking that seed and you're putting it in the ground, you're burying it. In order to do that, you understand that you have to let it go. You have this dream, you have this desire of what it is that you want to achieve and accomplish, and you're actually letting it go, you're burying it. You know, the Bible says that unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, it can't bear fruit. So you're actually, this vision that you have, this desire you have, it almost, in a sense, dies, and you put it in the ground. But there's something even more difficult for us to understand sometimes, because, you know, in order to help that seed to grow and to really reach its full potential, you know, we know that we water it, but there's something else that we do to that soil to help it to get the nutrients it needs to grow. Yeah, that's right. We put fertilizer on it. You know, fertilizer is manure. You see, you got to understand that sometimes when you plant that seed, it's just not like that you just suddenly get this return. Many times, that vision, that desire, that passion you have, it's going to go through a lot of crap. before it comes to fruition and you reap the fruit of that harvest. And we need to understand that. And sometimes we get discouraged because we don't understand that when you plant, the law of the harvest says, yeah, you're going to reap what you sow, but before you do that, you've got to put it in the ground. You've got to nurture it. You've got to fertilize it. And sometimes that's painful. Sometimes we go through pain on the road to success, and we need to understand that. Now, law 2 is a little bit more difficult. See, law 1, we can kind of grasp that. We kind of get that concept that you're going to reap whatever it is that you sow. We know that we don't plant an apple seed and get bananas. But law 2 is, I think, the area where most people hit their discouragement and because they don't understand law 2. Because you see, you not only reap what you sow, but you need to understand you always reap later than you sow. You see, you don't put a seed in the ground and you get up in the morning and you've got apples. No, you put it in there and you, like I said, you water it and you nurture it and you go through all that. And it takes time to bring that to fruition. And a lot of people, they get discouraged along the way. And you know, this is not only something that discourages people, but it leads people to believe that when they're not following these laws, that they're getting away with it. If you remember, I talked in part 1 that you cannot break the laws of the universe. Remember, I talked about if you jump off of a 10-story building, you're not going to break the law of gravity, you're going to break your neck. You know, I've met people that are living in complete opposition to the laws of the universe. And I talked in part 1 about the fact that we do that and we live in opposition to it, and then when everything goes wrong, we want to blame the manufacturer, we want to blame God, we say the design is wrong, when really it's operator error. You know, I've met people and I've tried to talk to them about the laws of the universe, and they don't want to agree or believe them. They say, look, I'm not doing that and I'm doing perfectly fine. But see, if you understand this laws of the harvest, that you always reap later than you sow. You understand what it means when the Bible says said, don't be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever you sow, you will reap. And sometimes, you know, I'm a marriage coach. And I have families coming to me sometimes and they'll talk to me about their children are really going through a wild period of time and they're in trouble at school or different places. And I've had parents say to me, hey, you know, it's okay, they're just sowing their wild oats. You know what the problem with that sowing your wild oats, if you understand this second law of the harvest? You sow your wild oats and someday you're going to pray for a crop failure. Because those wild oats will grow to fruition and you will reap what you sow. You may not see it now, but you will see it later. And now's not the time to get discouraged, because sometimes, because we don't understand that you are going to reap what you sow, but it's going to be later than you sow. And sometimes you can get discouraged. And I want to encourage you. This is where most people give up. You're going to reap that, but you got to hang in there. It's the third law of the harvest that brings it full circle and it really gives us that confidence and that hope. And if you keep your eye on that prize, you do it, because you not only reap what you sow, you not only reap later than you sow, but you always reap more than you sow. You see, you don't plant an apple seed and get an apple. You plant an apple seed and you get an apple tree with lots of apples. And if you stick with it, if you don't give up, in that midway point between the first law of the harvest and that second law of the harvest, you'll reap the harvest of the third law, that you're going to reap more than you sow. You know what? You really invest in this business, this internet marketing business, this home-based business, whatever it is that you're involved in. If you don't give up and you stick with it and you keep your eye on that prize, you will reap that abundant harvest. But you know what's tragic is that most people give up, but the harvest still comes. It's just somebody else is going to reap the harvest of your labor, of your hard work, because that harvest does come back. That's why, again, the Bible says, don't weary in doing good, because you will reap if you don't lose heart. And so I want to encourage you that if you stick with it and you'll understand it and you'll understand these laws of the harvest, don't give up. You will reap what you sow, and it'll be good, and it'll come back so much more than what you put in. Now, I hope that you'll join me on the next one, and we discuss the law of attraction and what that really means. There's a lot of talk about there, a lot of confusion about it, and in the next installment of this series, I want to talk about the law of attraction. In the meantime, I would like to invite you to go to my website, livingthatmatters.com, because you'll see where I've planted my seeds. I want to share with you where I've planted and where I'm nurturing that and where I'm reaping an abundant harvest just in the area of finances, in the area of an abundant life. And so that's livingthatmatters.com. I invite you to just go and check me out. Thanks for joining me.